What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this, your brain might be starving for oxygen and sending you warning signals every single morning that you've been completely ignoring? Before any stroke, before any memory test, before any emergency room visit, the signs are already there in the first hour after you wake up. And today, what I'm about to reveal could be the difference between catching this early and facing something you can't take back. Most people believe that brain problems announce themselves dramatically. You think you'll know immediately if something's wrong up there. A sudden fall, slurred speech, confusion that's impossible to miss. I understand why people think that. For years, that's what most of my patients told me too. They were waiting for the big, obvious moment. But what I've learned, what I see confirmed in my neurology practice every single week, is that your brain starts warning you about poor blood flow months or even years before any crisis ever happens. And it does it in ways so subtle, so easy to blame on other things, that 9 out of 10 people walk right past the signs without ever connecting them to what's actually happening inside their skull. My name is Dr. Michael Chen, and I've been practicing neurology for over 18 years. I specialize in cerebrovascular health, which is just a medical way of saying I spend my days helping people understand what's happening when blood flow to the brain starts to fail. And the reason I'm making this video today is because of how many seniors I've seen suffer strokes and cognitive decline who had every warning sign for 2 years and never knew what they were looking at. People who were doing everything right, walking every day, eating their vegetables, taking their medications. But nobody told them that the brain has its own language for calling for help, and that language speaks loudest in the morning. Today I'm going to change that for you. Just 3 weeks ago, I sat down with a patient, a 68-year-old retired teacher named Margaret, sharp as anyone I'd ever met, crossword puzzles every morning, book club every Thursday. She came in worried about her memory. But before we ran any cognitive tests, I asked her one simple question. How do you feel in the first 30 minutes after you wake up? She looked at me like I'd asked her about the weather. Fine, she said. Well, maybe a little foggy, but doesn't everyone feel that way? That fog, that feeling she thought was normal, turned out to be her brain screaming that it wasn't getting enough oxygen-rich blood first thing in the morning. Her carotid arteries, the major highways that deliver blood from her heart to her brain, were 62% narrowed. 62%. She was 8 weeks away from what her cardiologist later told her would have been a major stroke. So today I want to show you exactly what I showed Margaret. 3 early morning signs that your brain isn't getting enough blood. Signs that are happening right now in millions of homes across this country, and almost nobody recognizes them for what they are. The American Stroke Association estimates that 1 in 5 adults over 65 has some degree of cerebrovascular insufficiency. That's a fancy term for not enough blood flow to the brain. That means over 12 million people in the United States alone are walking around right now with their brain quietly, slowly being starved of the oxygen and nutrients it needs to function. And here's what makes this so dangerous. The brain doesn't have pain receptors. It can't hurt you the way a kidney stone hurts or a broken bone hurts. So it finds other ways to get your attention. And those ways show up most clearly in the morning, right after you wake up, because that's when your blood pressure is shifting, your circulation is restarting, and your brain is working hardest to come back online after sleep. The good news is that an ultrasound of your carotid arteries, a test that takes 20 minutes and doesn't hurt at all, can catch this early. But first you need to know what to look for. So let's get into it. Sign number 3, and this one is so common that almost everyone who has it blames it on age or their mattress or not sleeping well. You wake up and you feel dizzy or lightheaded when you first sit up or stand up from bed. Not spinning room vertigo, just that brief moment where the world feels a little unstable, a little swimmy, like you need to hold on to something for a second or two. Most of my patients tell me, well doc, I'm just getting older. My balance isn't what it used to be. And yes, balance does change as we age. That's real. But I always ask them this, does it happen every single morning? Does it happen specifically in that first moment of standing and then go away after you've been up for a few minutes? Because if the answer is yes, we need to talk about what's actually happening. When you lie down all night, your blood pressure drops. Your heart rate slows. Blood pools in certain areas. That's normal. And but when you stand up, your body has to rapidly redirect blood flow upward against gravity to make sure your brain gets what it needs. It's an automatic process controlled by something called the autonomic nervous system, and it happens in about 3 seconds in a healthy system. But if your carotid arteries are narrowed, if there's plaque buildup reducing the diameter of those blood highways, your brain doesn't get that surge of fresh oxygenated blood fast enough. Think of your carotid arteries like the main water pipe leading into your house. When the pipe is wide open, water pressure is strong. Everything flows. But if that pipe gets clogged with mineral deposits, narrowed down to half its normal width, the pressure drops. It takes longer for water to reach the faucet on the second floor. That delay, that sluggishness in your brain's circulation when you stand up, is what you feel as dizziness. Your brain is saying, I'm not getting enough fuel fast enough. Research published in the Journal of Neurology found that people who experienced morning orthostatic dizziness more than 3 times per week were 4.2 times more likely to have significant carotid artery stenosis than people who didn't. 4.2 times. That's not a coincidence. That's your brain waving a red flag. 2 habits I recommend for this one. First, don't jump out of bed. Sit on the edge of your mattress for 30 seconds before you stand. Let your circulation adjust in stages. Second, drink a full glass of water within 10 minutes of waking up. Dehydration makes blood thicker and harder to pump. Hydration first thing in the morning helps your cardiovascular system do its job. Sign number 2, and this is where things start to feel less like normal aging and more like something you can't ignore. You wake up and you can't think clearly for the first 15 to 30 minutes of your day. You feel mentally foggy, like your thoughts are moving through mud. You can't remember what you were supposed to do that morning. You read the same sentence in the newspaper twice and still don't absorb it. You start to make your coffee and forget halfway through what step you're on. And then, magically, after you've been awake for half an hour or so, it clears. You feel like yourself again. Most people call this brain fog and assume it's just part of getting older. My patients almost always tell me I'm just not a morning person anymore. I need my coffee to wake up. And yes, some of us are naturally slower to wake up than others. That's true. But I always ask them this: has it gotten worse in the past year? Are you noticing it more often or taking longer to clear? Because if the answer is yes, we need to talk about cerebral hypoperfusion. Cerebral hypoperfusion is the medical term for your brain not getting enough blood flow. And here's what makes the morning so revealing. While you sleep, your brain is incredibly active. It's consolidating memories, clearing out waste products, repairing cells. It's doing deep maintenance work. And when you wake up, it needs a massive surge of oxygenated blood to shift from sleep mode into awake mode. If that blood isn't arriving in the volume and speed it should be, your brain struggles to boot up. It's like trying to start a car on a freezing cold morning when the battery is weak. The engine turns over slowly. It sputters. Eventually it catches, but it takes longer than it should. Think of your brain like a factory that runs 2 shifts. Night shift does the cleaning and repairs. Day shift does the production and decision making. But the day shift can't start until the delivery trucks arrive with supplies. If those trucks are delayed because the roads are narrowed and clogged, the whole factory sits there waiting, unable to begin work. That mental fog you feel, that inability to think clearly, is your brain sitting there waiting for the oxygen and glucose it needs to fire up your neurons. A study from the Framingham Heart Study, one of the longest-running cardiovascular research projects in the world, found that people who reported persistent morning cognitive sluggishness were 63% more likely to develop vascular dementia within 10 years compared to people who woke up mentally clear. 63%. This isn't just an inconvenience. This is an early warning system. 2 habits I recommend. First, sleep with your head slightly elevated. Not sitting up, just 1 extra pillow so your head is a few inches higher than flat. This reduces the work your heart has to do to pump blood uphill to your brain when you wake up. Second, do 5 minutes of gentle movement within 15 minutes of waking. Not exercise, just movement. Walk to the kitchen. Stretch your arms over your head. Movement gets your heart rate up and pushes more blood to your brain faster. Sign number 1, and this is the one that scares me the most when patients tell me about it, because it means the blood flow restriction has progressed far enough to affect brain function in a very specific and measurable way. You wake up and you have trouble finding words or finishing sentences for the first 10 to 20 minutes of your day. You know exactly what you want to say. The thought is clear in your mind, but the word just won't come. You pause mid-sentence. You use the wrong word and don't realize it until someone corrects you. You call your grandson by your son's name. You ask for the thing on the counter and point instead of saying coffee mug. And then, just like the fog, it clears. By the time you've had breakfast, you're speaking normally again. This one gets dismissed constantly. My patients tell me, I'm just tired. I haven't had my coffee yet. Words don't come as fast as they used to, and I understand that. Language retrieval does slow slightly as we age. But what I see confirmed in brain imaging studies every single week is that transient morning aphasia, which is the medical term for temporary word-finding difficulty, is one of the earliest signs of insufficient blood flow to the left hemisphere of your brain, specifically to an area called Broca's area, which controls speech production. Here's what's happening. Your brain has different regions that control different functions. Broca's area, located in your frontal lobe, is is responsible for turning thoughts into spoken language. It's incredibly blood hungry. It needs constant oxygen and glucose to function. When you wake up and blood flow is restricted because of narrowed arteries, Broca's area is one of the first regions to show signs of struggle. It doesn't shut down completely. It just slows down. Misfires. Fumbles. Think of Broca's area like the dispatcher at a taxi company. Normally, when you need a word, you call the dispatcher and they send the right cab immediately. The word arrives, you say it, everything flows. But if the dispatcher's phone line is weak and crackling with static because the signal isn't strong enough, they can't hear you clearly. They send the wrong cab. They take forever to respond. They hang up on you halfway through. That's what's happening in your brain when blood flow is reduced. The communication line between your thought and your speech is compromised. Research published in the journal Stroke found that people who experienced transient morning aphasia more than twice per week had a 78% chance of showing significant cerebrovascular disease on imaging. 78%. That number should make you sit up and pay attention. This isn't a quirky aging thing. This is your brain telling you in the clearest language it has that it's not getting what it needs to do its job. 2 habits I recommend for this one. First, practice speaking out loud within 5 minutes of waking up. Read a paragraph from a book. Describe what you see outside your window. Talk to your dog. It sounds strange, but vocalization increases blood flow to the language centers of your brain. Second, if you're noticing this sign consistently, schedule a carotid ultrasound with your doctor this week. Not next month. This week. This is the sign that should move you from awareness into action. I want to pause here for just a moment. Have you noticed any of these 3 signs in yourself or in someone you love? Even just one of them happening more than once or twice a week? If the answer is yes, go to the comment section right now and type the word alert. Just alert, capital letters. That's all I need. I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone. And if you're finding this useful, hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second and it tells YouTube to show this to more seniors who need it. Because the people who need this information the most are the ones who don't know they're looking for it yet. Now let me tell you about Margaret, the patient I mentioned at the beginning. Margaret came to my office because her daughter noticed she was repeating herself more often and forgetting appointments. But when I asked Margaret about her mornings, everything clicked into place. She told me she'd been feeling dizzy when she got out of bed for over a year. She thought it was her blood pressure medication. She told me she couldn't think straight until after her 2nd cup of coffee. She thought it was just being 70. And she admitted, only after I asked directly, that sometimes she'd start to tell her husband something at breakfast, and the words would just vanish mid-sentence. When it's us, dear bonand 80s. She'd laugh it off. Senior moment, she'd say. 3 classic warning signs that I've just explained to you. When I ordered a carotid ultrasound, we found that her right carotid artery was 62% blocked and her left was 48% blocked. Plaque buildup, years in the making, slowly choking off the blood supply to her brain. Her cardiologist told her frankly that if she'd waited another 2 months, she would very likely have had a stroke, a major one. Margaret didn't need surgery. We caught it early enough that medication, dietary changes, and monitoring were enough to stabilize her condition and prevent it from getting worse. She started taking a baby aspirin every day. She cut out processed foods and added more leafy greens and omega-3s to her diet. She began walking 30 minutes every morning to improve her overall circulation. Within 8 weeks, her morning dizziness was gone. Her mental fog lifted. She stopped losing words at breakfast. No prescriptions beyond the aspirin. No hospital stays. Just information, early detection, and small consistent changes. When she came back for her 3-month follow-up, she told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Doctor, I thought I was just getting old. I was ready to accept that this was just how life was going to be now. Slower, foggier, harder. And you're telling me I didn't have to accept any of it. I just had to know what I was looking at." That's exactly right, Margaret. And that's exactly what I want you to understand today. We've covered 3 early morning signs that your brain isn't getting enough blood. Dizziness or lightheadedness when you first stand up. Mental fog or sluggish thinking in the first 15 to 30 minutes after waking. And trouble finding words or finishing sentences before you've been awake for a while. And I want to be honest with you about something. One of the hardest parts of my job is sitting across from a patient who has had every single one of these signs for a year or more and is only just now finding out what they mean. Not because they didn't care. They care deeply. They just didn't have the information. You now have that information, and I want you to do one thing with it. Just one thing. Tonight, before you go to bed, think about how you felt this morning. Did you experience any of these signs? If the answer is yes, or even maybe, call your doctor tomorrow morning. Not next week. Tomorrow. Tell them you want a carotid ultrasound. Tell them you've been experiencing morning dizziness, or brain fog, or word-finding trouble, and you want to rule out cerebrovascular insufficiency. That conversation could save your life. Your brain is the command center for everything you are. Every memory, every thought, every moment of independence, every conversation with the people you love, it all runs through that 3-pound organ in your skull. And it's more fragile than people realize. But here's the beautiful truth. It's also more resilient than you think. Caught early, poor blood flow to the brain is manageable. It's treatable. It doesn't have to steal your future. If you found this useful, share this video on Facebook right now. Tag someone you care about. A family member, a friend, a neighbor who's over 60. You might be giving them something they didn't know they needed. You might be the reason they catch this before it becomes something they can't take back. And if you want more conversations like this one, I post a new video every week on topics that matter for your brain health, your heart health, your independence as you age. Subscribe to this channel and bring someone you love along with you. Because the information that can change your life shouldn't stay locked up in a doctor's office. It should be right here, where you can find it when you need it. Next week, I'm going to show you the 5 foods that are silently destroying your brain's blood vessels after 60, and the 3 you should be eating every single day to protect them. You're not going to want to miss that one. I'm Dr. Michael Chen. Your brain is counting on you to listen to what it's trying to tell you. Don't make it wait any longer. I'll see you in the next video.